So, seminar joining. So let's wait for like 2 minutes. So let's wait for 1 more minute. Let people join.
Okay.
I think we should start, right?
Yes.
So, hi all. Welcome to the Tantu webinar. So I am Prashant Sarkar. So today's webinar, Startup Ecosystem is being organized by Tantu in association with onlineclothingstudy.com. So I would like to share a few words about Tantu and online clothing study. Tantu is an alumni association of two textile institutes from West Bengal. The one institute's name is Government College of Engineering and Textile Technology from Serampore. Another college is the Government College of Engineering and Textile Technology from Berhampore. So in Tantu, we have 200 plus members. Tantu serves the textile and apparel industry in many ways. So we publish yearly magazine, we organize seminars, and also Tantu provides scholarship to the students of those two colleges. So to know more about Tantu, you can log into tantutextile.com. Regarding online clothing study, so this is a blog for the apparel industry. So OCS blog is the most popular one for the engineering and also other apparel professionals. So I am running this blog since 2011. So Mr. Kingsu Pandit is our moderator and he will be introducing himself and our panelists. So I'm handing over to Kingsu.
I welcome all of you to this Tantu seminar for this startup ecosystem. We've been eagerly waiting to hear from our four fantastic panelists that we have. So without wasting much of our time, I will introduce these two speakers and then we'll be all eager to learn from them how to maybe just do a startup from tomorrow itself and eager to know what are the pitfalls that we have. Of this, both of them, incidentally, speakers are from a station currently in Mumbai. One of them is Mausumi. She is a senior director at this moment at the customer service in Coats Digital. She has previously been co-founder and CEO of a ThreadSoul, which has been acquired by Coats Digital in 2018. She's been award-winning in Young Women's Entrepreneurs Award 2017 of CNBC, TIE Women Entrepreneurship Award in 2015, and many other awards she has won as a young entrepreneur. She has been an active blogger. She has a Stitch Diary blog of her own, and she has published a lot of, she keeps on writing a lot of magazines, authors, and publications. She was a former faculty member of NIFT, National Fashion Technology, and she's been actively involved in consulting in garment industry in total. And incidentally, obviously, you know, she's already been a startup on her life already, and we are eager to hear from her about how to take up the concept forward. If any of you have a concept in mind to do a startup. The second speaker comes in is Mr. Subrata Siddhanto. He is a textile engineer and MTech from gold medalist from IIT Delhi. He is a well-known face and a name in retail and fashion industry, especially currently in startup and turnaround specialist. He has 3 decades of experience in consumer domain and retail industry. He's been business head of Trent. He's an executive director of Spencer. He has worked as a business head of Century Textile, headed the shopper staff for buying and private level division. He's been CEO for FIFA India Ventures and many other. Right now, he's been mentorship and advisor in a lot of startups, SME and corporates. So I welcome both of you to the startup seminar, and we look forward hearing from you, your ideas, so that we can jot down those and eager to hear from him. I hand over the mic to Mr. Subrata Siddhanto to give his thoughts about the startup seminar. Yes.
Thank you, Kingshuk. Good evening, everybody, and this is a wonderful privilege to me to speak to you on this. Having spent all the time in corporate and fashion and retail, of course, in textiles, and then personally worked in few startups, and I have understood the startup business to some extent, and today I'm going to share that with you. So startup as a word, I mean, we have to understand what is startup and what is the difference between a startup and a business, because these words are very, very new to us. And maybe for last 10 years, we've been hearing this word called startup. And many people call it a startup business. And this is very, very opportune time in the sense that I see a lot of startup is getting built during this post-COVID era. And many professionals are turning up as a startup entrepreneur. And this today's whole webinar will be very useful to all of them. Now let's look into the what is startup now. Now the word startup basically originated from Silicon Valley nearly 15 years back when technology business started, an amalgamation of technology and a traditional business started. It was important to define what is startup from the financial perspective, because no bank was ready to give a loan to a business idea, because it's just an ideation stage. So what is a startup, and how the evolution of startup that has happened? Essentially, startup is untested hypothesis. These are huge ideas and there is no business model exist. So very well, Harvard University has defined this as a very temporary organization designed for a scalable and repeatable business model. So mind these two words, which are called basically scalable and repeatable business model, which has got no precedence in the sense, can you do a startup in grocery, or can you do a business with a grocery? The answer to this both. You can start a grocery business because the business model is already existing. And you know exactly, when I say business model, all sales model, marketing model, product model, supply chain model, and all these models. But in a startup, it's completely untested and you do not know how it's going to happen. So these are a temporary organization. And at a certain stage, startup loses its startup status quo and it goes to a business. When it finds it, the day it finds its right business model, it becomes a business. So this is what is the starting point of a startup. So we have to understand the difference between business and a startup is basically where there is no business model exists and I have to find my business model right. So that becomes a startup. It can be anything. It can be traditional. It can be technology. It can be a hybrid of technology and the conventional businesses. Now, the very important thing at this point, one has to understand, are you talking about a feature? And many people come to me because now I mentor and advise a lot of startup. So my first question normally, before I go to Mausumi, is that, normally, and I think she has also gone through this phase, is that, is it a feature, is it a product, or is it a company? So normally the founder completely clueless on what they are talking about, or what they are hearing about. Is that, let me give an example. Let's say text messaging. Is it a feature? Is it a product? Is it a company? And you'll be surprised, Twitter is a company who has taken text messages from feature to product to company. So other way of defining a startup is basically a complete evolution of a feature to a product to a company. And of course, in these things, while you are doing in this journey, you have to find out the repeatable, scalable, valuable, and predictable business model on this. So this is in short, in terms of what is a startup. Let me go to, I think, Mausumi will be able to tell her journey on the startup on this point. Inshuk.
Yeah, Mausumi will take it.
Thank you, Mr. Subrata. Thanks, Inchuk. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let me just tell you a little bit about my story, and that will probably make it more relatable from where I come from and what I'm talking about. And believe me, I was as lost as you are 7 years ago when I started a company. So I come from a computer engineering background. I went to an IFT and did a postgraduate there. And I was essentially doing consultancy in productivity improvement, purely in apparel industry across Southeast Asia. And it was a lot of fun. I was enjoying my work. And I never thought that I will stop a job and plunge into something which is highly risky, and that's what it is considered. I come from a very simple middle class background, so starting a business was a big deal. It's a risky thing. You leave your monthly income and start. So around 7-8 years ago, I had a stint. I was teaching at an IFT for a year. I went back to consultancy, and around 8 years ago, me and 3 of my co-founders, 4 of us decided that we want to create a technology. And because it was in apparel space and I had been doing consultancy, so my startup essentially was a technology based startup which was able to analyze based on algorithms and create a system of using material in the factory, fabric, which is the biggest cost, and we were able to, through our system, save approximately 2 to 5%, sometimes 10% of fabric. Meaning you're producing same amount of garments with 10% less fabric. Anybody who's from apparel industry knows how much money it is for a manufacturer when I say that. So we started around 7 years ago with 4 of us working in Indian apparel industry, working in the factories, and it wasn't an easy start. It was a very difficult journey creating the product, going out in the market. From there to raising our first round of investment from Bloom Ventures, then going ahead and raising our Series A from Mr. Narayan Murthy. We raised around $3.2 billion across 5 years. We grew from 4 people to around 150 people. We spread from 1 country to 16 different countries. We were working mostly outside India. Major customers were outside India. We went to a revenue of $3 million annually. And then finally in 2019, February, we were acquired by Coats. Coats is a thread company. It's a $1 billion PLC based out of UK. They have an arm called Coats Digital, which majorly focuses in technology. So they acquired us. They have also acquired GST and Fast React. And if anybody is from apparel industry, they know how important and reputed these 2 products are. So currently I'm looking at, I'm part of the management business in Coats Digital, and I'm looking at global customer services, implementation, customer success for all these products. So it's been an entire cycle, I must say, from starting from nothing to growing and then finally getting acquired. And I would say at that time, there were no apparel tech startups in the Indian VC space. And it was a huge difficulty to explain to people that, apparel industry is a very big industry. I remember, in our first presentation where we were standing on a stage in Bangalore, and we were talking about one of the companies that is there in Bangalore and is making shirts for 5,000 shirts per day, and people started clapping. And I said, okay, it's all right, but there is nothing to clap about. I mean, this is the reality of the apparel industry. It's a big industry, but people don't know much about it. And particularly in the startup space, now I see that there is a lot of excitement, especially in the apparel domain. And I'm talking more from apparel point of view rather than general. And there is money out there. There are around 50,000 startups that come up almost every year. 8 to 9,000 startups who are mainly in the tech domain. Only in 2019, I think there was upwards of $11 billion invested in Indian startups. So there is a lot of money, but as Mr. Subrata said, you need to be very clear of what you're doing. And without being preachy, I would say that we did not have everything figured out. But the good thing is we figured everything out sooner as we went along. So we did have to figure out 2 things which were very, very important. What is your product and who is your customer? If you have these 2 things figured out, you would know what you're solving. It has to make money from your customers and it has to make money for you. It has to be profitable. But if you have your product and your customer figure out, money will follow. Kingshu, there you go.
Okay. Now I request Mr. Siddhanto to take up the next level, next topic.
Okay, so basically, Kingshuk, since we are just in a periphery of startup, what it is all about and how Mausami has gone about this, let's understand how it builds up. And there are many I know who have joined this webinar today are in a very early stage of startup. So there are a lot of things they can do. They can save time and money by listening to what I say next in a 2 minutes. Is that first look into your P&D profile. That's what problem, need, and desire. What are the pain points are you solving? What is the problem statement? And this is exactly, I spend maximum time with the people I meet. Out of 100 startup proposal that comes, 90% get rejected into this because they are not really solving any problem. They are making little more problem either, or they are in the same space, same red ocean and trying to fighting with another and trying to take little market share. While any business, you can have at least 3 players, and which we call as leader, lagger, and lightweight. And leader will always take around 55% of the business. Lagger will take nearly 30% of business, and remaining 15% will go to the lightweight. But these 3 players, leader, lagger, and lightweight, will have very unique proposition. Leader normally goes on volume or a very premium kind of product, either of these. Lagger will have a price perception play, and lightweight will always go for a kind of unique product proposition. Okay. If you are the 4th one, then you are out of the market, which we call actually in theoretical terms, ditch dweller. So even it doesn't matter. I mean, there is no difference today I find between Amazon and Flipkart. Okay, but they are a major 2 players. So if you quickly come into the 3rd player, it's all okay. But otherwise, you have to clearly understand what problem are you solving, because your size of business depends on the size of problem that you solve. Is it a scalable? And that's why repeatable, scalable value proposition you need to really look for that. And second is it B2B or B2C, because the problems are very unique in both the things, and some are the combination and B2B and B2C. What is your product USP? What happens at this point when they look for the product solving? They only focus on product. Now, how does it start? 2 guys working in an organization, they decide to collaborate and start a startup. And then they focus on product, but they ignore all other part of the business. And the number 1 problem that they create themselves is that they do not have any idea of go-to-market strategy. GTM has to be parallel to the product, and there are many products which are not that great, but they surpass in terms of GTM strategy, because it is very unique. What are the touch points of your product and how you are going to solve this? And I'll give you an example and a very unique case that has come. And this is, I've never seen such complicated product. It's called kneecap. Have you seen the kneecap for kneecap surgery? Now the question I asked, who is the consumer? Is it the patient is the consumer? I said, can you sell directly this to the consumer or no? To whom you are going to sell it? I have to sell it to a doctor. Okay. So can you really sell it to doctor? No. Doctors are controlled by hospitals. Now I have to convince the hospital. Okay, hospital. No, not only hospitals. I have to convince also pharmacists. So now look into the GTM strategy complication. This is of course a little aberration, but at least you have minimum 2, maximum of 6 I have seen, the kind of strategy that you have to see and you have to test your product. Now normally owners, the founders, they do not go to test their product. Very few. I mean, there are founders biasness, but I'm going to talk a little later. Is that you talk to some, you think they are the potential customer. Normally they talk to the people who normally will never become their potential customer and get a feedback on that. So go out of your office, go to the street, go to the market, talk to the people, take their feedback and correct this. And this is what exactly the VC fund sees before they try to fund you. They do not look into your your PPT presentation, they will look into the product modeling change that you're done on multiple interaction with minimum viable product. So coming back to that, what startup has to start with the problem statement. You look for what kind of problem statement you are solving, or what kind of need are you satisfying, or is there an unstated desire? So we call that P&D model, and you have to play in this periphery. It's a big work, and it takes normally first 1 year normally they spend only on this, and faster you go through all these things in a P&D, and you go to a next level, which is basically, this is actually birthing place or phase of a startup. When we talk about the different phases of startup, you'll see that, and birthing is that you're really not very sure. You have a great idea. The only concern you have that you don't have money. But all the limiting thoughts come only on money. I don't have team. I don't have resources. I do not know how to do these things. Or there is n number of ways to go all these things for resource sharing. You have to go for a SaaS model. You can go on a crowdfunding, and there are a whole lot of other things that you can do on these things. So I just thought of touching this, is that we are talking about startup, but there is no startup without solving any problem or satisfying any need. And I would request Mosumi to take her journey through this.
So yes, we were able to figure out a problem because I was part of the industry. I was doing consultancy and I saw that problem in that space. And that's the biggest challenge, to find out where is the problem and what exactly are you going to solve it. And maybe you are smart, you are clever, maybe you have a technical expertise, you can solve it. But just solving it, as he said, product has to also be equally valuable in the eyes of the customers, right? So it needs to be checked in the market, a market viability, that if the customer is accepting. Now, let's say you have a product, you have checked with the customer, customers are interested and paying. Now, the biggest question that you always think is, how do I get attention of the people who have money, right?
Correct.
That's a very big problem. And for me, when we started, 4 of us, all 4 of us had spent time working. 3 of my co-founders were from technology background. I was from apparel. We had 0 connects in the VC space. So that's from where we were starting. So what would we do? We started connecting with customers, talking to them, testing our product, trying to prove more to anyone else than to ourselves that our product is useful. And it is bringing some money to the customer, and customer will be willing to pay. But apart from doing that, we started participating in a lot of competitive events that happen in India. They are open to anyone. You can apply, and there you can get a stage in which you can present your product, and you can have experts sitting in the audience who can evaluate and tell you the direction. Along with that, you can win a lot of money. And you can get the attention of VCs. The first event we participated was Next Big What, that happens in Bangalore every year. Very early stage startup, they get a stage, you get an audience with the VC. Super. The second event we participated was Grace Hopper competition for women entrepreneurs. I won that competition for that year. They have a 5 lakh check cash prize. And at that time, it was a lot of money for a startup in the beginning. Apart from that, nowadays, they even take the winners to US for a 1-week tour with an attention and time with multiple VCs. We also participated in Microsoft BizSpark Startup Challenge. We won on the national level, and it got us a lot of attention for a lot of investors. And most of the investors that we have met were through these competitions and through these awards. So not only that you are getting a stage to present your product, you are getting feedback from the startup industry. You were able to get connects with VCs and get their attention. If somebody was interested, they would come to you, or you can go and say, sir, I am this, I have just presented. If you like it, please give me your card. I'll come and show you more. And it gives you a lot of opportunities to reach out to people from, big startup, big investor VC funds who are not easily accessible actually for everyone. So I think that is something you should think about if you are in a startup. Of course, your product, customer, set up your plan, create a business plan, and then look and focus on these events. Do not think that if you don't have connects, you can't get there. You can. There are options, but you have to continue with that research to be able to be visible to the VCs, show them the value. That's the way to go. And that's how I went. And that's the reason I'm trying to tell you that it was very, very helpful. And you know, when you are about to run out of money in like a month or two, winning Microsoft BizSpark challenge and the amount of money that came with it from the Microsoft support was amazing. And that's really helped, got us the right people to meet, got us the right direction. We had Azure hosting for a year for free, a lot of Microsoft products. So it helps. There are a lot of opportunities, but it's important for us to not just sit in a corner, but dig down in what's out there. There are lots of incubation centers available in the industry, which is trying to push people towards a startup. And if your startup has value, there will be focus. It takes painful amount of time, but it happens.
Mausami, can you tell me what are the top 3 mistakes you can recollect out of your journey? Top.
Lots of them.
With all the wisdom that you have today, which are not there, let's say 7 years back.
None of it.
So if this wisdom would have been there at that point of time, what are the top 3 mistakes you could have avoided?
I think when we started, we were kind of crazy. Right now, if I look back, I think I was mad because we didn't have any money, you know, 4 of us, we didn't have any money in our savings. So we just put all our money in one bank account and said, let's try it. We left our jobs and just went with it. We could have planned it a little better in terms of, you know, how to go about it. We would have gone international much faster. We spent a lot of time in India trying to sell our product. Our product was more suited for bigger manufacturing units. And we wanted a price which was, you know, one factory, $50,000, which obviously we were not getting in India. But the moment we went out of India, the business blossomed much, much faster. So that was, I think, a very important learning. Apart from that, I think a few other small learnings along the way. You need to have a good VC on your table or a good investor. For us, Bloom Ventures was a blessing. They were not just people who just invested money, but they actually took us through the journey, guided us along. They did not run our business, did not push us through. Of course, you make mistakes along the way, you know, some wrong hires, some wrong directions, but a good VC is a very good thing that you have on your cap table. And that was very helpful as we went along in our journey in the process. So I think these 2 are very important learnings that I think we...
You touched upon a very important point, good VC. We'll touch upon those on how to attract a good VC. You know, you have to plan to be lucky. So I'll come back on those things. Since I asked you the question on mistakes, mistakes, let's say, okay. And it's unfortunate that startup after startup globally, even in India, even my experience with at least mentoring 8 startups, exactly the same thing. There's no difference in that. So number 1, shall I tell those few of them so that we help everybody? Okay. So not solving real problem, no value proposition. And normally there is I call founders bias syndrome. They live too long on that phase because, and most often maybe one founder has not left the job, still not in a full time. So by the time they come, somebody has stolen the idea. So not really the problem solution or need solution has to be properly looked and validated. That's number 1, because the startup does not exist without really solving a problem. Number 2, staying too long in an idea stage without creating proto or minimum viable product. They make all PowerPoint presentation, and normally they make a very big mistake in a second stage as they directly start talking to the VC funds and other things and prematurely kill the business or the business stake. So without, and VC is not ready to look into, the PPT presentations. I have seen 69 slides PPT presentation, which ideally should have been in a 10 slides. And so So whole thing is that they are only interested in your product photo and kind of evolution that has happened in first customer interaction, second customer interaction, third customer interaction, and how the product has evolved, so that they get an idea of really things that happen. So not solving real problem, no photo ready, and then third is that not hiring the right person. Here also founder's bias plays a major role. Normally founder hires the person of his or her own image. This is the major mistake. By the time 9 months, an average, can you guess what is the average life of operation head in a startup, Moshimi? Any idea?
No, I don't know that.
It is only 9 months, and this is the mistake. So they hire big corporate guys. Now you have to understand the corporate is for execution. Startup needs very different kind of mindsets. You hire the right person, but 1.5 years earlier. You have to hire the same person after 1.5 years. It has happened many cases. They left the job and they came back and they proved, they proved themselves right. And after 1.5 years, they are ready for this assignment to take when there's need of execution out there. So hiring is a very big mistake they do. Another big mistake they do is that they take advice from the friends and relatives or people they meet in a morning walk. So they do not look for the mentor or kind of advisor. Okay, now these days they are in the different form and format advisor. Really somebody, for your case, you are lucky that VC, you got a VC who was giving you idea, but to go up to even VC, you need advice because you do not know, because these guys are not either tech guy or normal business guy who do not have idea of the marketing, sales, operation, and all kind of team building and other things. They need to be guided. So if possible, hire a mentor and see if you can get have a very short term contract and see whether it's helping you or not. So this is a way. Don't think it's not required. It's required only. You'll come to know on the second year, because in a second year you'll find that you're still doing in a startup stage. I have seen startup 7 years. That's not startup. That's a 2-year startup and 5 added with 5 years of failure. That could have been a very easily avoided because they're taking it too low. And then losing all the stake because of you don't have any knowledge. You lose most of your stake in early stage of VC funding. Okay, the people do not know the pre-valuation and post-valuation model. So they keep on losing things on this. Probably, if another one more I can add, this normally I've seen startup out of N2 because of the moment the first round of funding comes, even after some kind of seed funding happens, is that they tend to spend money to scale up. Now, infrastructure built up is faster than the sales revenue generation. This is a deadly sign of cash burning ratio goes nearly double or triple, and then you have no clue which direction market is going. Many startup guys, they come to me and said, no, nothing will happen to my business. I have a patent. Now you have to understand that patent is not equivalent to defensibility. Yes, you have a patent, but what if Google and Microsoft exactly works on these things? First of all, it takes 5 years to have a patent if you're lucky, and then you fight with Google and Microsoft. You cannot. I have seen people losing business out of this. So don't only bank on your patent and all those things. It's good to have. It's good for your VC funding, but VC also these days are not. I've seen they are not giving much credentials to this weightage to these things. So more or less, these are 6-7 points that I mentioned, and I'm sure those who are into the startup phase, they will be able to echo my thought process. Mausumi and Kingshuk, your views on this, please.
I have one question to both of you, and one of the question already been asked on the panelist is that is there any bias towards by the VC towards the IFT IIM alumni, quote unquote? Anything that?
Let Mausumi reply. I'm blabbering a lot. Mausumi, the real person who has worked, let her reply, and then I'll just supplement.
And I add up that to that question, I add up another thing: is the age a factor, VC funding for these?
No. let me answer it very straightforward. No, age is not a factor. You could be, I have met founders who were as young as fresh out of college and founders who started at the age of 50, 60. So it doesn't matter. When you feel like it, if you feel the grit, if you feel the need, if you feel the drive, go ahead with it. That's it. Age is definitely not a factor. Going on to IIT-IIM, yes, we do see a lot of people from IIT-IIMs in the startup world, but I don't think there is a major bias. And you know, being a woman in apparel industry, every meeting that I used to go to in an apparel factory, I would be probably the only woman in the room, right? You know, the apparel industry, at least in India, is majorly, you know, male based, and we are talking production, we are not talking the fashion side of apparel, right? We work in production and we know it's male based. So does it have a bias? No, not really, but that's how it is. So I don't think that there's a major bias. If you have a good product and a good environment, you would get the opportunity. Okay, but yes, it's a kind of difficult because being in IIT-IIM, you get connect. So, you know, being a Tantu member, you have access to so many people, but are they biased to Tantu members only? No, probably not. It's just that you are lucky to be in that coterie and therefore you get that access much easier. Okay. And as Mr. Subrata was saying, I'll just elaborate on the point. There will be mistakes. Don't be scared of it.
Great.
We made a lot. We were on the verge of bankruptcy 3 times in our journey. Once, 28 days, we were about to lose everything, no money. We got our first customer check, survived. Second time, we were about to go bankrupt in 42 days and we got our Series A money in our bank and we survived. The third time, we were about to go bankrupt in 6 days and we were acquired. So don't be scared. Mistakes are fine. It's you and your grit. It's not romance. It's a lot of trouble. It's a lot of pain. And it's always the strength of the person who wants to start up. You know, I'll just recount an incident when Mr. Murthy, Catamaran Ventures, it's Mr. Murthy's personal money and they were investing. So we went through the entire cycle, meetings, everything. And in the end, we were told, Mr. Murthy never invests in a company, even if it's a small amount. I mean, what he invested in us was like a tiny amount for Mr. Murthy. But even if it is a small amount, Mr. Murthy never invests without meeting the person face to face, because he believes that the strength of the entrepreneur is the strength of the business. So, you know, in this journey, I was lucky enough to be able to meet one of the greatest, you know, entrepreneurs in our country. And that's very important lesson that I learned, that, you know what, everything else is important, but you as a person is the most important part of the business. If you have the grit and you are ready to go through the grind, you know, and are not just starry-eyed by the world of startup and hearing about fancy people like Mark Zuckerberg and all of this. The world is not like that. Those are exceptions. This is a slightly different kind of a romance. It's a lot of work, but if you're in for it, it's a lot of fun as well.
There is a question specifically
just
for...
a minute, Kingshuk, let me supplement that.
Yes, Mr. Subrata.
With Masumi on, are they looking for IIT, IIM? There are 3 things normally VC fund looks into. The first and second and third, actually, all these 3 are money, money and more money. Okay. They're looking for 100% profitability. They will say that they can come out of this in 5 years. They look into the every year 100% return and the kind of valuation it can give. Whether it's IIT, IIM or kind of illiterate, it doesn't matter on this. That's number 1. Number 2, just on the dot what Masumi told us, it's on the team. They focus maximum 80% weightage on the team and the founder. Okay, they do all kind of study on the background of this thing. And third, what is the moat around the business, if at all? Okay, this moat can be a business model moat. This can be a product moat. For example, just give me, let me give you a case that I came to know. There's a virus, antivirus making software company, which was a market leader. The second company has come, which product is not that great, but he made a completely free subscription model, completely wiped out the earlier leader on overnight. So how did they make money? They know that every month new virus come. On a second virus coming, they will take very little. Third virus, again, another little bit for upgradation. So this is basically complete business modeling revamping. And once you install that, basically, software, normally you do not move out of that, it automatically downloaded and all those things. So they will look for the return, they will look for the leadership or thing, and they will look for the modes around the business, to be precise. That's all. Yes,
okay, I just wanted to, there is a question which is basically somebody wanted a repetition of what Masumi was saying. What are the name of the startup and challenges and the competitions? They wanted to hear it again.
The startup that I did?
No, the startup, the competitions and the few competition name that you said, those forums,
Okay.
Those they wanted to repeat.
Next big what? Microsoft Big Spark. Thai manufacturing does a lot of competition, and if you really want to research, there are some very popular startup blogs. Yourstory.com, just go there, search for startup competitions on Google. Really, you will get at least 50. Okay, there are lots of startup competitions that happen. There's for a Grace Hopper Foundation, Anita Borg Institute, they run a Women Entrepreneur Contest in Bangalore. Apart from that, I just named 3-4. There are at least 50 startup competitions all over India, and every VC or one or the other representatives of the VC firms would visit these competitions to actually, because they are also trying to find out good businesses, right, to invest. So they also go to these competitions to see and meet people who may be having some ideas or something which is in one corner of the country which is doing great. So they also have to explore and find out, right? So just check online, you will get at least 50 competitions, or just drop me a message on LinkedIn, I'll give you a list, no problem.
Okay, great. There are a lot of questions which is similar. I'll post it to Subrato. It's basically the point out the same thing: how to get a VC, how to get a funding, how to be in get a mentor, those sort of questions. So if the Subrato can answer,
these I can just touch upon on these, Kingshuk, because these are bigger subjects. They take a lot of discussion, and anybody interested probably can come back to me. And at the end of this program, we'll be putting probably our mail ID, so you can touch base on us, and we can always satisfy your queries. So, but in terms of course, VC, you have to, as I told, you have to have a real problem solution or need solution to begin with, and how you're planning, what is the scalability of that, because that's exactly they look for how the funding they are going to get, how the return on funding they are going to get out of this. Get your idea right. There are thousands of forums, thousands and thousands of, you Google it, you'll find it. But there are top 4 to 5. If it is, there are industry, if it's a technology industry, it's one kind of funding that happens. If it is a traditional, brick and mortar industry coupled with technology, little bit here and there, you got a different. If it is education or kind of industry, a completely different set of, I have seen it's happening. So normally, IT and non-IT broadly, these two set of P funds, VC funds operating on this, and there are a number of places you can really go into this. If you're suffering any of, you feel that you are very near to your cracking the business model, right? You are. That's what it's important to. And our next point will be touch upon on what stages of startup are you? Basically, there are 4 stages. And once this 4th stage process, the 5th stage comes, you become a businessman or woman on these things. So one need to really evaluate. You can come back on all these things to us post this.
Okay. There is a question specifically towards to Masumi, which basically asks a question is why there are most of the startups are service oriented rather than manufacturing oriented.
Actually, see, which startups are more talked about. The more talked about are the B2C startups, and therefore service oriented, because they have to do a lot of marketing and they have to make a lot of noise. Manufacturing space, yes. Apparel, I would say there are hardly any. I think when we started, there were no startups. There were businesses, long-term businesses, software businesses in apparel space that had run for 10, 15, 20 years. But there were no startups because nobody thought this industry needs, right? So it's always about where the VCs are focusing, and there's always a fad. So there is a fad of a food tech startup. So everybody is investing in food tech. Then there was a fad of e-commerce startup. So it's kind of a season that keeps moving. There are some very good manufacturing based startups as well, but they are more focused on B2Bs, and therefore there is not much noise. But these B2Bs are not so much in the apparel space. Apparel space is kind of still, I would say, to a large extent greenfield. With Zilingo making such a big noise, there are lots of companies right now that I know are coming up with similar kind of business models, with buying houses or digital buying models, and lots of startups coming around that. You would hear about Sundar.io, which has been for a while. Then there was quite a few Locofast that are coming now. But it wasn't there when we started, and they are all still in the space of this business, which is B2B, from brands to manufacturers and connecting them. But there are startups in the core manufacturing space. There is a bias towards technical, and also India is a very big population, which is ripe for these typical B2C startups to get that business going. So it's growing. But I think now there is more of a change, and it always keeps changing every 2 or 3 years. So you see that wave moving about. You have to be careful. I mean, we knew nothing when we started, but over a period of time, we learned certain VCs have, how are they investing? They have their own LPs, right, who are giving them money. They are investing their money. So these VCs also have their own grocery list of the kind of startups they would want to invest in. So they are more or less focused. They know that these are the areas we'll invest in. And these are the size of check I will give. So certain VCs or certain investors would only invest very early in the journey. Certain investors will invest a little late in the journey. So, when you start, you will look for an angel investor. Angel investor would be an individual who might want to put in money in the business. So let's say a rich man who has some money to spare and can also give you like 10, 20 lakhs. So they would spend smaller amounts. These are angel groups, Indian Angel Group, as you know, IAN is very well known in India, and there are many others like that. Then there's the class of seed investors who will put slightly higher money, and seed and angels always work together. So they would put a slightly higher amount of somewhere in the range of 500,000 to 2 million, sometimes 3. That's the range they play in. They don't go higher than that. Then if you want to raise the next round, you have to go to the VCs who would spend money in the range of say 3 million to higher, 2 million to 4, 5 million. That's the series A. Series B will go from 10 to 13 million. So these are the stratas. If you are starting up right now, just focus on angel and seed. Don't worry about everyone else. Focus on these people. So you have to read a lot. It's, as Mr. Subrata said, it's a very wide topic. And to understand this, it took us a long time. Trust me, the seed investment, we had done meetings with 200 investors and were rejected by 200. I can count them. So after 200 rejections, we got the first seed fund. So that's how we learned, but it's a huge topic to understand, and how big this VC industry is and how it functions. They have their own push and pulls, the kind of guidance they have and the kind of companies they will invest in. So you'll have to really understand how they function internally to understand which are the companies I should target and talk to, and which of these VC funds would be actually interested in my kind of a product.
Okay, just follow-up question, small question to you, Mausami, again. Is there any bias towards B2C funding vis-a-vis B2B funding?
I wouldn't say it's a bias. It's just that people, these VCs, they have their own agendas, right? So their LPs have told them that we would like to invest in food tech, or we would like to invest in this. We would like this kind of a company to be invested in. So it's not a bias. It's more of a fad that moves on. So at one point in time, if you remember, there was so much noise. Everybody was investing in these real estate startups, right? Common Floor and companies like that. Then it moved from all the Food Panda and Zomato. So it's more of what the industry is looking at a point in time. It keeps changing. It's not static. Right now, a lot of focus is on enterprise startups and B2B startups. So it keeps changing. It keeps moving. It's like fashion, we are from the fashion world. We know how it keeps turning around and always comes back to something.
That's right. Great.
So
Yeah,
basically what this VC fund does, they map on a sunrise industry. So right now, health, education, food, digitalization. These are the four major blocks that I find happening. Everything, every business has got little digital component. It can be a contactless payment gateway, it can be a e-commerce part of it, but it is around some kind of product and then delivery and supply chain logistics by partner. So these health or medicine, the pharma industry, and then overall health, then learning and education, and then food, and then digital enterprises and e-commerce and all. These are the major area where really VCs are interested these days. If you talk anything out of that, you will not get proper funding on this.
There is one question for Subrata again. It is a reverse question. He is asking the question reverse way. How do I incubator get in touch with the startup? What is the platform?
It's an incubator.
Incubator get in touch with a startup.
Oh,
Rather
great.
than startup going to an
Just
incubator.
contact me tomorrow. I'll give you 200 startup. They are looking for incubator.
Okay, what is the platform they're asking? What is the platform that they can?
No, there is no problem. There are few. I mean, one of the very known one, of course, is Deshpande Foundation. If you can get in touch with them, they are great. But they do normally on eco kind of employment generation to rural. But they're a big. It's a big foundation, Deshpande Foundation. They're a #1 name in the country, so to say. So you can get in touch with them. You Google, you'll find them.
Maybe just put an article on your story or Economic Times. I mean, they'll be more than happy to say incubator looking for startup, and you will be stormed.
Yeah. Just say tomorrow. I'll just put in my LinkedIn. Just send your link to me. I'll help you.
Okay. Okay. There is one question to Mausubi. I probably relevant to her is saying if we present an idea to a VC, the idea no longer remains a novel. What is the guarantee that the idea will not be, what I can make it out from the question, it will not be stolen by somebody else?
Well, why should you be scared about your idea being stolen? I mean, if don't be scared of competition. I mean, that was not a good thing for us. Let me tell you that. Okay, we did not have any competition in the apparel space. And I believe that's not a good thing. A competition is good. A competition makes you better. A competition develops the market, makes the market understand the product. It's not a bad thing. And if your idea is easily copied, that means it's not a very good idea actually. Okay, if anyone can copy your idea like this, that means your idea isn't that unique, and therefore the person who wins the game would be the person who executes it better. So e-commerce, essentially, everybody understands this now, right? What happens? You get the product, you put it on a portal, you sell it. So who wins? The person who has done a very good execution and is able to get the supply chain and the money rolling in for themselves and of course for their investors. So don't be scared of competition. Competition is good. It develops the market, it grows the market, and you need to grow yourself so that you win in that game. But better have a better idea which cannot be copied that easily just by looking at a PPT.
Interestingly, most of me, two of the founder I met who came for my help, is that they are so afraid of this being leaked to the competition. They're not going out in the market to do their go-to-market strategy, and they're not going, they're testing their product on, they're not crossing the road thinking, what if everybody comes to know about my idea? You see, if you don't ask the customer whether they need of these kind of services or not, how do you know? Well, no, it will be leaked altogether. And so it will remain always secret. It will never come out of these things. So little bit possibly you can do for your mental satisfaction. Everything is open secret. You can go to non-disclosure agreement, NDA signatures. You make an NDA. Normally that's a way the easy funds work. You sign an NDA and then probably that will give you mental satisfaction. Always remember, no NDA will protect from copying. You have to be better version of the copy always, all the time. And second, no patent can save you from again being copied. These are required to other to flourish, not for you. You speed up do it ASAP, do it as fast as possible. Even if you are second, somebody copies you, you remain first. That's why I told this the 3 positions of leader, lagger, and lightweight. Any position you take, you can flourish, believe me. Any position, but try to be in top.
In fact, if you are a leader, you have more disadvantages.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot more to discover. The market needs to mature. But if you are starting a little late, you are in a better state. So don't worry about copying. Just go. Just do it.
I remember my class teacher in standard 8. He told me never become first in the class and never become last in the class, because in both the cases, teacher's eyes are in these 2 guys. So I always remained second boy till my last exam.
Okay. One question is basically request to Mosami to repeat what she said, because there's a question repeat to that what comes first, angel, seed, what she was talking about. If you can repeat that topic again. Which one first, which one second?
The first investment generally are angels. Angels are essentially people, high net worth individuals, essentially people who have really good amount of money and would really like to invest in a startup, because when you invest early, you can get a lot of return. Okay, so one of our angel investors was Mr. Rajan Anandan. He was MD of Google India at that time. I think right now is he heading one of the biggest VCs in the country. So apart from that, there were 3-4 other high net worth individuals who invested in our company. Around, every individual in an angel stage will spend somewhere between 10 to 20 to 30 lakhs, in that range generally. That's the range that they play in. There are lots of angel investor groups in India who all are in the audience of the competitions that I was talking about. Okay. Then from angel investment, the next is seed round investment. Seed round investment is generally in the range of $500,000 to somewhere around $2.5 to $3 million. It varies what your valuation is and how much percentage stake they will take. It's a whole lot of other discussion. I'm not going there right now. So angel, then it goes to seed. From seed, you go to next round of investment, which is series A, B, C, D. And of course, you must hear big companies, go to, I don't know how many alphabets. I haven't checked if anybody has reached Z yet, but people go from there. But essentially, typically startups go to A, B, C, D. Series A is in the range of somewhere around 2.5 million to it will go to somewhere 3-4 million, sometimes 5, depending on the negotiation and how they want to invest and what stakes they want to take. Series B is generally towards the higher range, from 8 million to much higher, 10, 12, 15, 20, depending on the kind of VC it is. But that's the range. So angel, seed, series A, B, C, and so on. In between also people take various types of mid investment or kind of bridge investments that they take. But these are the basic slabs.
I think, Kinshu, if we can take through the stages of startup and key indicator at this moment, because these are the answer that has given Mausami is very relevant to know which stage of a business the startup at that particular point. That will be very helpful to the audience.
Yes, Mr. Subrata, why don't you elaborate on that?
Okay, so basically, as I told earlier, is that there are four stages. It remains a startup, and 5th stage goes to a business. First is birthing, then crawling, then walking, then running, and of course, when you become actually driving. So birthing is when you're going through all the struggles. You are testing the very unclear and wishful business model that you initially thought. A whole lot of iteration going on that. Your constant worry is only money. It is at that stage a bootstrap. Nobody is, even the angel investor will not come. Forget about the seed investor at that point of time. Your focus is on acquiring customers. This is a symptoms of a birthing stage. After remaining there, normally birthing stage, I think people between 1 to 2 years, they go into that, and then they move into the crawling when you are looking for survival. You have a relatively better working business model. Some cash flow is coming in the sense of you are generating some kind of revenue, but there are tremendous cash flow challenges, and your entire life goes around how to generate money. And this is the point where you go for a seed or angel investment. Then you go to 3rd phase, which is called working, which is basically experiencing stability. You now have little profitable model. but it's still not scalable. It's small. Still you need money, but throughout its operation cash flow positive, and a business owner himself is or herself is doing everything from operation to marketing to sales to HR recruitment day to day. So basically, first two stage when you are birthing and crawling, actually you are under self-employment. You remember your old job. I used to get salary in a month, and you are not getting any salary at this moment. And then you pay for everybody, all the workers and all these employees, everybody, and then you don't take any pie in your pocket back home. So then one day the good day will come. So the good day comes when you have stability and working stage, when your business becomes really little profitable. Now you are darling of P and VC. Somebody asked me what to do, how to attract VC. Come quickly to the working stage, and show that business model works, and this is also scalable. You don't have to prove your scalability at this point. So business owner, and then the VC will put the money. The first round of investment may go there, and you start recruiting the people that you need at that point. And then you come to the running phase where you are chasing success. You go through rapid financial growth, little bit owner independence. It becomes normally team drives the business, where the owner follows and those strategic tie-ups and other things how to take it big. So once you're this stage, this is your blue-eyed boy in all the forum. You'll be speaking like Mausami is speaking. She's in actually running phase. Actually, she is in little ahead of running phase, I'll tell. She's in a driving phase, which is actually she's owning a business now. And so normally we have seen between running and driving. Driving is completely management is decentralized and business owner independent. When the VC funds third round comes in the running stage, normally the founder takes little backseat at this stage. They bring a professional CEO or EDs or on the running things, and maybe the founder remains as a CEO over there for sometimes, but they get their stake very well at the between running and driving stage, and they go through this. So these are the different stages and different funding happens. One has to be very mindful how much money and how much time, how much money and what energy where to spend at this point. And this is where the mentor helps. The guide helps in, you don't do this. This is not required at this moment. So, and this is really helpful. I'm sure most of you can walk through these different phases that as I theoretically explained, and I have seen this happening. It must have happened many times. It happened 2 stages together, very in short phase it has happened.
You're right, it aligns with this money. So initially, of course, you are bootstrap. The first time we were about to go out of money in 28 days, and we had the first customer, not the first investor. The first customer pay us. After that, when we had a few customers and we saw there is a viability, we had the first investor, which is the seed and the angel came together for us at the same time. So the angel and seed investment came in once we had a few customers and the product was proven. When we grew to a certain stage after the seed investment, and we were at the stage where we wanted to scale internationally, more than 2-3 countries. We were already in 2-3 countries, but we wanted to scale internationally, go into Southeast Asia, China. At that stage, we went with our business plan to the Series A investors, and they saw the viability, they saw the stage where we are, the growth, and we were profitable. Around 40% profit margin is what we had, which is a very good number for a startup. So then we raised a Series A, and we had a plan to go under, and then within a year's time we were back to profitability. Around 1.5 years, when we finally got acquired by Coach, we were again break even. So within a month or 2 or 6 months down the line, we would have been in the profitability range already. So that's the journey that happens as you grow and you reach the next stage, and the next round of investor starts looking into you. So it's initially there are just too many, but there are very few startups who actually grow and go to Series A, and then really fewer who go to the next round. And we had the option of either raising a Series B round, which was a $10 million. We were already talking to quite a few, and the opportunity to be acquired by a big public company. And we chose the opportunity to be acquired. And we were more or less in control of our business across the journey. Our investors always, it depends on how your relationship is with your investor and if you're running a business well. If the investor believes that you're doing good and you are doing the right things for your business, because they, of course, you have to report to them every quarter and how your business is doing and what's happening. They'll let you run your business on your own. And of course, if they believe that there is something that's not going very well, they would want to help you out by bringing people from outside, maybe putting a CEO. A lot of places it happens mainly in series B or C rounds, but initially they do trust the founder, that the founder knows best of what their business is if they have grown.
We have come more or less to the close of the session. I will hand over to Prashanto. Before that, I just one brief question to Subroto, where probably we introduced him as a mentor for a startup. The question is specifically for that: how to find a startup, whether how to find a mentor, whether he is a qualified person, how to know that he is a qualified mentor, is it managerial aptitude or technical knowledge or something else?
Great. So it will come from your own understanding. First of all, why are you looking for a mentor? Are you trying to solve a particular problem, small problem? Are you trying to solve a part of a business? For example, you're not good at finance, so you need a solution for the finance and these things. So in those cases, you need an advisor, not mentor. There are three clear-cut distinctions between advisor, the mentor, and the coach. So mentor basically builds you up. Mentor does not build up the business. Mentor will be telling you these are probably the directional, these have happened in the past. This is probably the way to do. These are the things to do. But where is the advisor will sit with you and advise in the particular problem solution mode. So best is that look into the what are you looking for. Do you understand all components, 7 or 8 components of business to run? It's not only making a product. You can be very good in product, and most often they're good in a product part. But then running the business and you need probably a mentor. For particular component of the business running, you need to have an advisor. Now, how to know that? Absolutely, you cannot see the horoscope of the person. So the way to is that have a very short-term contract, have for 3 months and see whether it's adding any value. That's good enough for you. And do your own due diligence of that person, what he has done earlier and all those kind of things. So that will help you. And I'm sure you'll be able to find that there are good related to either your industry or in general. Normally people look into 2 kind of advice. One is called functional advice, other is called domain advice. So a domain advice is for basically for the product and the part of the businesses. But the functional advice is basically for all the component of the business. But the coach will come and the mentor will come and he'll build you up so that you become self-sufficient and you can run that business. He will help you learning and grow.
Before I hand over to Prashanto, just one line answer from both of you. There's one question which says, are these startups only for selling?
We never thought we will sell. So let me start from there. Okay. We never thought we will sell it out to somebody else, but for the good of the business. And at that point in time, we thought that that's a good home for our business, but we thought it's going to be a business that we will grow. And actually you should never start with the thought process is what I believe. I may be completely wrong, but I believe you should never start a business thinking that you will sell it off. You need to think that you will actually grow and create a really big business as the journey moves on, and the journey will tell you where to go. But no, a lot of people start thinking that they will exit after X years and Y years, but life is unpredictable, right? So we started not thinking we will sell it and we ended up selling it. So it depends on the founder and how they think.
What is Subroto's view on that?
So there are 2 kind of things, both yes and no, in the sense that I have seen personally, there are a lot of business of selling business. That's a very wonderful business to sell businesses. Probably there has to be push and pull factor both. So during initial stage, many people, they do not think to sell the business, but they come to a kind of optimum position where, further valuation of business is not going to grow. So they are eternally startup specialists, they are eternally a business person, and they see that if I can squeeze out the real value and start another startup. And then in mental frame, they are continuing their own startup journey basically from point A to point B. They can on a similar space or something very different. Entrepreneur never dies. Even if you put inside the for coffee, he'll come out and start another business of selling coffee. So it depends on the valuation. It has reached the peak maturity value of valuation and got a very good value, which is unthinkable. Okay. So, I mean, look into the Flipkart. 6 billion is a goodwill. 6 or 7 billion is goodwill out of 13 billion of that they have given. So it's impossible those kind of premium to get. And somebody gets this premium, I mean, I can start another 20 businesses on this. So a part of startup of business is wealth creation and freedom creation. That goes without saying. Nobody is here to do a kind of, to donation. Of course, you can do that. But basically to become yourself rich and make the society rich, and then you enjoy the personal freedom out of that. So moment the founder feels that that's being achieved, and then I think that's the time to call.
So I thank both of you. It was a wonderful discussion on behalf of Tantu, and hand it over to Prashanto as a host to share their contact details and emails and anything else that he has to say. Yes, Prashanto. You can share their email ID if you want. Subrato's email ID, anybody wants to contact, or they can contact tantutextile.com. We'll forward it to them.
Or just drop a message on LinkedIn. That's easier.
That's easier.
You can contact me in the LinkedIn also. Yes.
Prashanto, you're on mute.
Prashanto, you are not.
Yeah, sorry. So thank you, Mosami, and thank you, Mr. Subrato. So would you like to take more questions? I think we have time.
I'm ready.
That's fine, no problem.
Okay. So there is few more questions. So here I'm displaying the contact details of Mosami and Subrato, and also Tantu's contact details. So you can reach and you can send feedback at communications@tantutextile.com.
Basically, the questions are how to, what stage to approach a VC. I think Subrato and Mosami both have covered at some point of time how to approach a VC, what time to approach a VC for funding. Is it necessary? Is it means that when the VC comes in, the startup, the founder quits? All sort of questions like that. If you want to add something, Subrato and Mosami.
No, not necessary. And the founder doesn't go when the VC comes, because founder takes it to a level of scalability. And if the VC finds that the founder is not speeding up enough, and what they initially thought, and then they will request him to step down, and some other professional person will be brought over there. So it happens at extremely last stage when the valuation is really very good.
It's generally if your VC does not feel the confidence that the founder is the right person to run the business at that stage. Okay. Regardless of the fact that you may not be like, I am not an expert in finance and things like that, because that's not my education, but I learned through the journey. I learned everything. So now at this stage, I am good enough to be able to read an accounting document and sit with, reading all the legal documents. So you have to learn all of this through the journey. And you have to also understand the market, the business well. If the VC feels that the stage of the journey, you are not enough, or you are not getting enough help, then they would probably want someone else. And that happens to a lot of companies in B or C stage generally.
So one point is that what stage to VC to catch is basically how, when you are succeeding, it can happen in any stage, even in stage 1, immediately after bootstrap, it can happen. I have seen this happening. There are 4 indicators. If you have a notebook, please write down whoever asked the question. Number 1, is my sales growing? Yes or no? It has to be yes. Is my customers network is growing? Yes. Is my repeat customer growth is happening? Yes. Is my margin stable and growing? It's not falling down? Yes. If the 4 questions answers are yes, please immediately call VC wherever you find. You'll be properly valued.
Okay, there is a question from a student, I believe. Maybe Mosami can answer it. Is there any internship opportunities to learn startup?
you don't learn startup, you do it. And seriously, in this age and time where you are, why do you want to do an internship to learn startup? If you are too early, join a startup, get a job there. That's the best place you will be able to see. Join a small company who's just starting up. You may not get a lot of money, but you will get a huge amount of learning experience and you will see the journey, how it happens. That's one way. Second way is just go online. There is enough content. And to learn face to face, join a small company, join a small startup, get a job in a startup, work with them. You will see the things that are going right, the things that are not going right, and you will earn it and learn it from from a very close point of view. I believe that a lot of people who have worked in my company, I hope they start their own companies someday. That's the belief, and that's the reason you work for it, right? It has to create and ensure an ecosystem where there could be a lot more startups coming around from there.
Also, one very, very important point here is that I have seen many, is that what you get through is of the startup is less important than what you become through it. Your becoming is more important than what you get through. Of course, you get a plenty of money and all those kind of stuff, and also freedom. But as a person, you become a very different altogether while you are going through all these phases and become this thing. So a whole lot of fulfilling things happens in your life. A lot of serendipity happens in your life while you go through this, and that's I think very important part for a startup. That's what the kick normally entrepreneur gets more than money.
Okay, there is a two small question to Subroto. One is some recent examples of successful startups, and another small question is, should we chase the investor or chase the customer during a startup?
First one is there is a better person who can tell you which are the successful startup. His name is Mr. Google. You just Google it. There will be at least 120 will come, and you are probably in your mobile you have at least 10 of them at this moment. So these are all successful startup. And what is the second question?
What is the, where should we chase the investor or chase a customer during a startup?
You chase the customer, investor will queue up. The moment the customer is there, you will find it's like make your business model right. There will be multiple. I have seen this funding meetings where there's the hundreds of the startups are called from one room to other room. The moment one black sheep they find, or they say no, this is I have to chase, and then everybody goes around that, and gradually the valuation goes up. So make your business model right. Have those 4 figures that I've told on a sales and margin and customer acquisition and all these numbers in upswing. You'll find the right person. You chase always the customer. Always.
One short question before we quit is from Tantu President. I'll keep it to both of you, maybe most to me, is how important is the profit and revenue, and which is important for startup, and why? And why most startup is not profitable, and why VC keeps on investing non-profitable startup?
Okay, the VC is not stupid. Let's be very clear. They are not losing money. Okay. But having said that, they are currently the wave and the environment that it is. And a lot of people have questioned the viability of chasing growth and not chasing profitability. At this stage, most of the VCs are chasing both. So there has to be growth and there has to be profitability, both. That craze of chasing growth is now slightly going down. You must have heard in last few years, the valuations of a lot of big companies who have raised a lot of money has gone down, correct? If you just search, you will find enough news items. Now, why is that happening? Because people are getting money out of their valuation, and eventually they believe when it goes public in the market, the VCs would make money. However, the core financial systems, the way they function, they don't look at it like the VCs do. So there is some dispute because of that. Not going into the micro details of it, the valuations are going down. Okay, as simple as that. Therefore, currently, the mantra for today is chase both. chase profitability, you must be profitable. Maybe not a big margin, but at least EBITDA positive. As in, you should not be losing money. That's a very good thing. Even if you're losing money, there has to be a timeline that over a period of time through my processes, let's say for a year or so, because I have money and I can choose to invest and grow, I will reach a profitable business after a year. So growth, profitability, both are important, very important. And the most important for a startup, keep an eye on your cash. How much money you have cash, how many months you have to survive. And that will guide you how you balance growth and profitability. VCs right now are looking at both. So if you say I am profitable, but you don't have enough growth, you are no good for a VC. Okay. Or if you say I have growth, but I am losing money and I am losing money like crazy, you are also no good. So it has to be a balance. And there and there are lots of rules and, terminologies online you will find on how VCs look at it. It's fine, but it does give you a guidance.
So the insight of this recent my conversation of the one VC fund, they are guiding all the startup, do not acquire new customer because that's coming at a certain cost and dragging the profitability. Work with the existing customer, reduce the customer acquisition, not reduce, you don't have to grow for the customer acquisition, increase the ticket size of existing customer. Can I go more wide with my customer in terms of bill penetration? So the another indicator is of course the average ticket size of existing customer is increasing, so that you serve the existing customer, you become quickly profitable. So that's what at this moment, but I don't feel it's going to be there the moment all this present problem of financial problem goes out again, because customer acquisition is a key mantra of startup. It has to come.
Okay, Prashanto, now it's probably
okay. So I think we should close now. Thank you all participants who are still there, and thank you Mausami, thank you Mr. Subrata and King Sugda. Goodbye all.
Goodbye. Thanks, Prashanta.
Bye bye. It was a pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.